Maybe we went too hardcore on these guys.
Yeah, why do you think we never go back to a place we've already been? Do you know how many adventures we could get out of Purge Planet, Morty? Gear World? I don't sequel. It's called Integrity. Here, put this back on your face.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my Rick and Morty Season 4 Episode 7 video. There were a ton of Easter eggs and references. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We'll do a Rick and Morty merch giveaway. All you have to do to enter is just be a subscriber and leave your favorite joke from the episode on the video. Careful for spoilers. If you haven't seen the episode yet, we'll do top 10 WTF and Easter eggs as we go along, starting with number 10. The title of the episode, Promortyus, obviously a reference to Prometheus, the prequel to the Alien movies. As is the case a lot of times, the title of the episode is mostly just connected to the overall bit that they're doing in the genre for the episode. Like Rick and Morty, but make it aliens. A couple years ago, they even did a Rick and Morty Season 3 trailer that was an official Alien Covenant movie crossover promo, with a much more accurate-looking version of the Builder's spaceship. In this episode, they open on a very LV-426-looking asteroid-type planet with a shot of a crashed alien ship. It's different from the crashed alien ship in the first Alien movie, but everyone gets the reference that they're going for. And the other big thing that they do with the episode is tell it in a very non-linear way, like The Hangover. The episode actually starts around the middle of the story when they're just escaping the facehuggers, figuring out why they've been on this planet for so long. Number 9, the other big twist of the episode, as the writer revealed, is it's meant to be a Rick and Morty adventure, but what if Rick and Morty are the villains of the episode instead of the traditional villains that you would think of as the facehuggers? Like within the Alien franchise, facehuggers are terrible. They lay eggs in you that grow into chest-bursting xenomorphs, killing you when they're born. But because it's Rick and Morty, they have a couple callbacks to the Unity episode with Rick and Morty essentially messing up their society. Even though they're facehuggers, they're parasitic, they seem kind of bad. We learn later during the summer montage that they have a relatively positive society that Rick and Morty just completely rip through and destroy. There have been a lot of episodes in the past that have portrayed Rick and Morty as the assholes of the episodes, like Morty inadvertently Cronenberging his entire original Earth, causing them to have to pack up and head to another one. We learn about Morty's browsing preferences and his extensive knowledge of adult website algorithms and his apparent desire to share his love of them with Jessica when he goes on and on about hoping that Jessica is as much of a degenerate as he is with some of the same kinks. We learn that Rick really loves M&Ms. You notice that most of the bodies of these people are either the pink aliens from Whirly Durly Conspiracy in Season 3 or these blue aliens. There are a couple others that show up from different races through the episode because these are parasites, they're facehuggers, so they just take whatever they can get, anybody that crash lands on their asteroid. Number 8, we don't find out till later in the episode, but as they start to mess with their now dead facehuggers, we find out that they were actually in a relationship because of the way they tell the episode in a non-linear way. We don't really learn what happened to them till we get to the summer part of the episode where she tells the backstory. And as gross as that part of the episode was with them getting together, Summer is telling that backstory. Rick yells at her for making a bunch of stuff up. Like, that didn't actually happen. I think that's the writer's way of giving themselves an out. Like, Rick and Morty didn't actually kiss in the episode, even though there was another kissing reference in last week's episode. Like, Rick and Morty didn't actually do that because technically it was their facehuggers doing it, and Summer was probably lying about them doing it anyway, so it probably never happened. They set up the bit about the host bodies laying eggs and dying every half an hour. The joke there is that a half an hour is the length of a typical Rick and Morty episode with commercials. They pay that joke off at the end of the episode when Rick and Morty, after about a half an hour of the episode, feel like they're going to lay an egg and die, but turns out they just really had to take a deuce in the middle of the living room while watching Interdimensional Cable. Number 7, speaking of which, this is their second Interdimensional Cable joke in 2 consecutive episodes. There was a huge Rick rant in the episode about why they don't revisit old bits and episodes when he breaks the fourth wall again. Like, he says they could do a ton more stories on the Purge world or Gear world, but people would hate it, and by people, they're referring to the fans. So it's more meta commentary from Dan and Justin talking to the fandom, explaining why they're not going to keep doing the same episodes every single season. And because of that speech in the 2 consecutive Interdimensional Cable jokes, it kind of makes me feel that unless they're totally faking us out, they're not going to do another proper Interdimensional Cable 3 episode this season. But just because they claim that they're not going to be recycling old episodes doesn't mean they're never going to follow up on Evil Morty or any of the other major overarching stories. It just means that they're not going to rush to do another episode set on the Citadel of Ricks, exactly like they did during Season 3. So when they do go back to those overarching story characters and elements, they'll just be done in totally different ways. Rick makes a sick burn about film school kids and crappy student films. I'm sure you'll turn this into a beautiful short film that your parents will have to pay for, Morty. That's mostly the writers making fun of themselves because most of them went to film school and had to make student films that their parents probably had to pay for. They start to piece together their backstory a little bit, but it's not clear how many days they've been on this planet because it's been long enough for them to create a magazine for their new society that Summer helped them create and profile Morty for it for a big cover story. Rick uses that to make a sick burn on print media. He's not wrong when he says getting into print media right now is a terrible idea. In real life, most newspapers and traditional magazines are starting to go out of business. Number 6, we find out that facehugger Rick is a YouTube celebrity in their society, but it's not Rick Sanchez, it's his facehugger that's the YouTube celebrity spitting out all these truths about host bodies and eggs and their way of life. I also love that he asks for likes. Please like and subscribe.
If it doesn't, please like and subscribe. New videos every glorious day.
Morty reminds us that he's watched so many adult web videos that he's become an expert in cheap apartments, architecture, and design. That's a whole lot of adult videos. The special spaceship that they're trying to construct to fire eggs to Earth totally looks like a dong. If you look in the background of enough Rick and Morty episodes, they add phallic shapes like this all the time, like some of these rocket ships at the end of Season 3, Episode 1, and now you can't unsee it. Morty loses his shit again when all the other aliens get pissed at him for making them do a bunch of work for nothing because he tries to call it off, which is a nice callback to the Purge episode where he just completely loses it on that guy trying to write that fanfiction. Rick then goes on to directly mention the Purge episode when he goes on his rant later in the episode. We get another celebrity cameo. This is Alan Tudyk. He's the alien that's asking why their facehuggers haven't blinked in a long time before they take off running. Then number 5, Rick and Morty make their big Star Wars reference, like who cares about a ton of semi-faceless stormtroopers dying, and that's when the writers really turned them into the villains of the episode, as they said. Like, Rick and Morty are the evil people, the facehuggers are supposed to be the good people during the episode. We'll learn about a bunch more hidden weapons on Rick's spaceship. It has a gun turret just like the Millennium Falcon, another Star Wars reference. Rick and Morty try to banter just like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo during A New Hope, while Morty's blasting as many things as possible. They reference the Twin Towers, then break the fourth wall again when they call it cheap, low-hanging fruit, as if the writers wanted to make them the villains of the episode, but didn't want to make them so irredeemable that fans in real life would get really upset about the references they were making. But for some reason decide that facehugger Pearl Harbor isn't too edgy for them. I guess you can blame all these replicas of Earth locations on Summer, because the facehuggers were getting their inspiration for this society in their plans from her. They do another Star Wars joke about skip jumping when Rick uses the technique to create a giant blast radius, blowing up a giant group of aliens and some buildings surrounding them before going home, completely forgetting that Summer had been with them the whole time. Rick makes another political Saudi Arabia terrorism reference when Beth is questioning the logic of their real-world tragedy references. They set up the Jerry beekeeping bit with his honey. Jerry's own is a reference to Newman's own. The actor Paul Newman in real life has a brand of food products. They donate their profits to charity. Jerry is apparently just doing it for the honey, it seems. They wind up paying that bit off at the end of the episode when Summer's friend Trisha, who's shown up a bunch in the past couple of seasons, says she wants to bang him. Because apparently the beekeeping turns her on. That's more of a side bit about the lamest person in the episode somehow coming off as the most interesting person. Because the family was so bored with him at the table that they completely ignored him when he was talking about it. Number 4, Rick has his big rant about them not redoing episodes going back to places that they've been while they're going back to a place they've just been, sort of illustrating the point, hammering it home to go get Summer. Rick is also breaking the fourth wall again while he's doing this. When they land the spaceship and open the doors, beer bottles spill out both sides the exact same way they did in the pilot episode, just more references to them redoing old bits and episodes. They do their big Ronin Warriors anime suit-up montage. It's been a long time since I've watched that series, but that's what these suits and the swords are references to. Rick apparently also has adult ADHD because he's been taking Adderall, either too much or too little, he's not sure. We find out he has another secret drill weapon in his ship, burrowing a path through the ground to the place where Summer's been this whole time, and they reveal that she's been the Glorzo's Empress since the beginning of the episode. When they get locked up, the song that Morty sings, Nobody Knows, is actually an old African-American slavery song that goes back a long time, but wasn't actually recorded for the first time till 1867, but it's shown up all over pop culture movies, it's been re-recorded a billion times, so even if you don't know exactly where the song came from, you've probably heard it at some point in a movie or a TV show somewhere. They use the song to set up the bit about the musical notes forcing aliens to lay eggs prematurely, which they then pay off by the end of the episode. Number 3, Summer goes on her big backstory rant. She apparently really likes podcasts, and they get really meta again with Morty and Summer referencing their core character traits as characters in a TV show. Like, Morty really likes to play with himself. I own it. It's authentic to my character. The joke with Summer and the toothpick is that she's desperate to have a thing because she's typically a background character and she doesn't appear in all the episodes, so she just wants to seem like a much bigger character. They try to turn it into a bigger joke with the failed facehugger implantation later as part of the reason why she was able to win them over and become their empress, but Rick's burn about podcasting being boring sounds kind of like Dan Harmon in The Writers making fun of Harmontown, because Dan Harmon just ended Harmontown after several years of weekly podcast episodes because it sounds like, as Rick says, he got bored of it. This facehugger that's been alive for 7 minutes is played by Nolan North. He's actually been in multiple episodes so far this season. Dan Harmon sings the theme song to the Glorzos while they're building this new society that Summer's helping them create, which Rick and Morty later destroy in the episode when they go on their tear. The Rick Glorzo starts his YouTube channel. They do a bit about office politics with the Glorzos when Summer tries to get Morty back by firing his facehugger and replacing him with another team member, setting off the part of the episode that we saw at the beginning. They do that really gross bit about the Rick facehugger getting with the Morty facehugger, which probably didn't happen according to the logic of the episode. When they get recaptured, we learn that Summer is just as bad at improv as Rick and Morty as she tries to set up their escape, and then they pay off the bit about the music and the egg laying, revealing that Rick also has a secret sound system hidden inside the trash can rockets of his ship. They bring the bit about them being the villains of the episode back around, and somehow now Summer is even worse than Rick and Morty. They hate her even more. Then too, because this is a one-off episode, they try to tie a bow on the theme of the episode, saying that it's mostly that they suck, everyone sucks. Then Rick and Morty go back to watching Interdimensional Cable, referencing not trying too hard in new episodes, and finish paying off the egg-laying bit every 30 minutes when they wind up crapping on the floor. Number 1 WTF was obviously that post-credit scene tag in the bit with Trisha trying to bang Jerry. Watch out for her, she is a freak. But it actually tracks with her character because if you go back to season 3, there's even the episode where she's talking about doing super freaky stuff in bed. There were a billion references in the episode, so if you spotted any big ones that I didn't mention in the video, just write them below in the comments. And obviously my trailer for episode 8 will post tomorrow. So everyone click here for all my Rick and Morty episodes, and click here for that brand new Mandalorian Season 2 teaser trailer for Boba Fett. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. I'll see you guys tonight.